Hey film fans, welcome to CinePro, your ultimate hub for all movie recaps. From heartwarming classics to the latest blockbusters. A man wakes up in complete darkness, disoriented and confused. His head throbs, and he has no idea who he is or how he ended up here. As he stretches and cracks his joints, he searches his pockets and finds two things, a lighter and a set of keys. Flicking the lighter on, he notices a nasty wound on his arm, though he has no memory of how he got it. When he looks around, the faint light from the flame reveals a horrifying sight. Hundreds of dead bodies scattered around him. The overwhelming stench and sheer terror make him vomit. Suddenly, lightning flashes, briefly lighting up the pit, and he spots a pair of brown eyes staring at him from above. Before he can call out, the woman disappears into the darkness. Panicking, he yells for help, his voice echoing in the eerie silence. As he stumbles toward the edge of the pit, his foot hits something. He looks down to find a gun. Just then, Brown Eyes reappears above and throws down a long rope. Without hesitation, he grabs it and climbs out as quickly as his shaky arms allow. Once out of the pit, he takes a moment to catch his breath before searching the surrounding area. In the distance, he spots a house with its lights on. Desperate for answers, he makes his way to the house and hears muffled voices coming from inside. The people are arguing, debating whether they should help him or keep their distance. They suspect he might be dangerous. Unable to wait any longer, the man bursts into the house, gun drawn. Inside, he's met with Lucas, who raises a shotgun in defense. The air is thick with tension as they accuse each other of being the killer. The man, still confused and frustrated, insists he doesn't remember anything and mentions Brown Eyes as the one who helped him out of the pit. He demands to know why she did it. Before the argument can escalate, Nathan collapses to the floor, writhing and screaming in pain. Sharon rushes to his side, offering water and calming him down. The man finally asks who these people are, looking for some clarity. Sharon explains that none of them remembers much either. They only know their names because of IDs they found on themselves. Michael drops the IDs on the table for the man to see, but there's no ID for him or for Brown Eyes. The group explains that they've been searching for answers too. Some of them have keys, but no vehicles have been found near the house. There are no phones, computers, or anything that could connect them to the outside world. The man turns his attention to Brown Eyes, who is quietly scribbling in Chinese. Frustrated, he yells questions at her, demanding she explain what's going on. The others stop him, explaining that she's mute and doesn't speak English. Despite that, they can't shake the feeling that she knows more than she's letting on. The group reveals they woke up inside the house just half an hour ago, confused and afraid. But Brown Eyes was already there, silent and mysterious. Lucas immediately grows suspicious of the main guy, pointing out that it's strange he woke up in the pit while everyone else woke up together in the house. His mistrust sets the tone as the group begins exploring the house, searching for answers. Sharon discovers a locked door but can't find any key that fits. Meanwhile, Lucas notices strange wounds on his body. Brown Eyes tries to explain them with hand gestures, but Lucas can't understand her. In the pantry, the nameless man finds a calendar with April 18th circled. Intrigued, he brings Brown Eyes over and asks if she marked it. She nods, but once again, her gestures fail to convey the full meaning. Michael calls everyone over, having discovered a closet full of weapons. He expertly loads a gun, prompting Nathan to guess he might be a cop. Michael suggests they all arm themselves and head outside to investigate, but Lucas persuades the group it's safer to wait until morning. Later, the main guy tends to his wound, and for a brief moment, has a memory flash, himself doing something violent. He brushes it off, finishes showering, and steps out only to hear the others shouting that Brown Eyes has run off. Lucas, Sharon, and the main guy venture into the woods to search for her. As they navigate the dense forest, Sharon remarks on how bright the stars are, suggesting they're far from any city. As they continue walking, the main guy experiences another unsettling memory, a fleeting image of himself dragging a body with a seahorse tattoo. He keeps the vision to himself. The trio follows a terrible smell and soon finds a dead man tied to a tree, his body wrapped with ropes and wires. The gruesome discovery leaves them shaken. Back at the house, Nathan stumbles upon books in Latin and, to his surprise, realizes he can read them fluently. The books seem to be medical and biological reference texts. He also finds a book in French, which he understands. Back at the house, Nathan stumbles upon books in Latin and, to his surprise, realizes he can read them fluently. The books seem to be medical and biological reference texts. He also finds a book in French, which he understands just as easily. Michael speculates that this might be Nathan's house, especially since his body instinctively knows how to handle weapons. In the forest, the group eventually finds an old shack. Inside, they discover Brown Eyes feeding a woman who's tied up. The scene takes a dark turn when the woman sees the main guy. At first, she cowers and accuses him, saying, "You used me." Her fear quickly shifts to rage, and she lunges at him, screaming about a daughter. The man instinctively knocks her out with his weapon, leaving the group rattled. Lucas notices a camera mounted in the shack's ceiling, its light blinking, indicating they're being watched. Back at the house, the main guy obsessively tries to open the locked door with his keys, but none work. Nathan approaches and begins speaking to him in Latin. To their shock, the man responds fluently in the same language. Surprising even himself, Nathan begins feeling an inexplicable connection to the main guy and Sharon, convinced they must have known each other before. John tries to brush off the idea, but Nathan insists they need to work together to solve the mystery. He points out that the locked door is reinforced iron and can't be forced open, adding another layer of frustration to their situation. The next morning, the group plans to search for vehicles. Michael insists on coming along, boasting that he's the best shooter. To prove it, he tosses a mug into the air and expertly shoots it. Despite this display, Lucas tells him to stay behind and guard the house. Annoyed but compliant, Michael watches as the group heads out. Left behind with Brown Eyes, Michael confides in her, saying he feels like it's his responsibility to protect the group. Their conversation is interrupted by a distant scream. Alarmed, Michael sends Brown Eyes into the house while he investigates. He discovers a man tangled in barbed wire begging for help. As Michael approaches to assist, the man suddenly wraps the wire around Michael's neck, choking him. Michael struggles but is overpowered when the man repeatedly stabs him with a sharpened stick. Meanwhile, the group continues their search, stumbling across the same tied-up body they found earlier. They begin to think it might be some kind of warning. As they move on, Nathan tosses rocks around out of boredom, only to hear one hit something metallic. Following the sound, they uncover 2 cars hidden under debris and barbed wire. Sharon manages to start one of them after a few attempts. It's low on gas, but they consider driving it to scout the area. While inspecting the cars, Lucas finds a photo of the group members. Everyone except John is in the picture, leading to a tense moment. John tries to ease their suspicions by suggesting he might be the one who took the photo, but Lucas isn't convinced. He points out that they're in the middle of nowhere, and driving the car with such little gas could leave them stranded. Since the other car's battery is dead, they decide to head back. On their way, Brown Eyes runs toward them, urgently leading them to Michael. They find him gravely injured, but their efforts to save him fail. He dies moments later. The man who attacked Michael begins screaming hysterically, and John, overwhelmed, shoots him dead. The act triggers a disturbing memory for John. In his mind, he sees himself violently smashing a woman's head against a wall and dragging her lifeless body across the floor. He says nothing about the memory but is visibly shaken, leaving the group wondering just how much John Doe knows, and isn't telling Brown Eyes has a breakdown. So John takes Nathan's keys and leaves with Sharon. They push the car to get it running and drive off. Eventually, they reach an abandoned building with the number 18 painted on a wall and a truck in the garage. While Sharon looks in a mirror, she notices a kid running in the background. They search for him, hearing his voice inside the building, but the front door is locked. The kid calls Jonah by name and tells him to leave because they are coming tomorrow. A dog appears behind the door, barking furiously at Jonah. Jonah panics, asking the kid to send the dog away, but the kid threatens to make the dog attack. Sharon tries to calm them down, but Jonah loses his temper, shooting and hitting the padlock. Sharon pulls him back and says, "This isn't like you," making them both realize they know each other. Back at the house, Lucas experiences flashbacks, running through the forest while being chased, sitting in a cage while someone watched him, and being found by Brown Eyes. In the present, Brown Eyes touches Lucas's face and he grabs her hand, scaring her. Nathan intervenes, yelling, "Stop it," which echoes in Lucas's head and causes him pain. Lucas becomes sicker, and Nathan decides to take him to the shack, which Lucas remembers. They find the prisoner from earlier has escaped. Nathan follows a path around the lake, experiencing flashbacks of the area. He eventually finds cabins surrounded by dead bodies. Nathan steps on glasses, realizes they are his, and puts them on. This triggers a memory of arguing with Sharon and Jonah about mistreating people. Inside the cabins, he finds empty cages and hears crying. He discovers the escaped prisoner Helen, holding her dead daughter inside a cage. Nathan remembers her name and apologizes, saying they were trying to help. Helen, furious, tries to attack him. Nathan locks the cabin door and steps outside, noticing zombie-like people approaching. He readies his gun. Meanwhile, Brown Eyes returns to the house and avoids Lucas by hiding behind the iron door. Lucas bangs on it, claiming he remembers her, but she doesn't open it. Frustrated, Lucas gives up and heads outside, finding a door to the basement. There, he discovers a lab filled with medical supplies and a laptop. On the laptop, he sees a video of Jonah experimenting on him. Jonah talks about a blood transfusion from Brown Eyes to Lucas, calling it Day 96. Jonah is frustrated when the transfusion only causes temporary results, and the video shows Lucas waking up, screaming in pain from extreme headaches. On the road, Jonah and Sharon encounter a fallen tree blocking their path. As they investigate, they find people cutting down trees nearby. Jonah tries talking to them, but the group screams and chases them with weapons. Sharon trips, but Jonah helps her up, and they run back to the car. The car won't start, so Jonah pushes it as the attackers close in. Suddenly, the group stops, frightened by two bodies hanging from the trees. Jonah realizes the bodies were placed as scarecrows to scare people away. Jonah and Sharon return to the house, only to find Lucas waiting for them, weapon in hand. Lucas accuses Jonah of hiding the truth, telling Sharon about the experiments and showing her the video he found. Sharon checks her arm and finds needle marks similar to Lucas's. Jonah admits he's started remembering bad things he's done, but before he can explain further, Lucas knocks him out with his gun. When Jonah wakes up, Lucas is dragging him toward the pit. Lucas fires a shot near Jonah, forcing him to stumble and fall among the bodies. Jonah notices the seahorse tattoo on one of them, and suddenly recalls hitting the woman and hearing Nathan tell him to handle it himself. Other flashbacks flood in, Sharon, Michael, and Nathan scared of him, and Sharon asking if he'd gotten blood in his mouth. Meanwhile, in the house, Lucas grows more unstable. He struggles to remember names and becomes aggressive, grabbing Brown Eyes inappropriately. When Sharon tries to intervene, Lucas shoves her to the ground. Brown Eyes escapes toward the reinforced door but doesn't manage to lock it in time. Lucas chases her, and when she fights back, kicking him down, he recovers and pins her. Crawling on top of her, he forces a kiss. Sharon fires a warning shot, causing Lucas to leap out of a window and flee. Shaken, Sharon goes to the lab and discovers detailed notes on the experiments, triggering her own memories. At the same time, Brown Eyes helps Jonah out of the pit using a rope. She draws the number 18 on the ground and points toward the abandoned building. Jonah realizes time is running out and tells her to stay at the house while he investigates. At the building, Jonah finds tents, a cage with blankets, and a box that sparks another memory. He recalls handing the box to someone, saying it was their last chance. Inside a second box, he discovers a map, and another flashback shows him marking a route on the map and telling someone to follow it. As Jonah searches further, he encounters two zombie-like people. One of them roars, startling him into dropping his keys, which the zombie swallows. When she attacks, Jonah shoots her, retrieves his keys, and follows the map. He eventually finds the kid from earlier with his family, who are preparing to leave in their car. An armed old woman recognizes Jonah and accuses him of hurting them all. She warns him to stay away before they drive off. Jonah notices a sick teenager thrashing in the back seat as they leave. Nearby, Jonah finds the box from his flashback, which contains vials. A memory hits him, cutting into a brain and telling someone the army would be waiting. He stumbles upon the crashed car from his memory and finds the driver dead inside. Searching the vehicle, he discovers a map similar to his own and a document with his name and a photo of him and Sharon, confirming they were a couple. Suddenly, a car speeds toward him. Jonah jumps out of the way just in time. It's Lucas, looking sicker than ever. The sight of Lucas triggers a flood of memories for Jonah. He realizes he wasn't torturing people. He was a doctor trying to cure the infected. Lucas had been their first successful patient, even thanking them after his recovery. But their celebration was cut short when a zombie woman escaped her cage, forcing Jonah to kill her. Jonah blamed Nathan for not securing the cage, but Nathan insisted it wasn't his fault and ordered Jonah to dispose of the body. As Jonah dragged the body to the pit, his team radioed him, warning that all the zombies had escaped. Jonah told them to inject themselves with the cure to survive. He now understands that the memory loss was a side effect of the cure. Before Jonah could act, he was bitten by a zombie and pushed into the pit, where he injected himself and blacked out. Back in the present, Lucas attacks Jonah, grabbing his neck and trying to strangle him. Desperate, Jonah grabs a rock and strikes Lucas on the head, killing him. As Lucas dies in his arms, Jonah finally remembers everything, including his team's desperate fight for survival and the tragic cost of their efforts to stop the infection. Nathan returns to the house and embraces Sharon as they realize they're siblings. Their reunion is cut short when two zombies appear at the door, breaking the glass and trying to grab Nathan. Sharon quickly takes them out with her gun. Screams echo from outside, signaling more zombies approaching. The scarecrows no longer work. The siblings hide behind furniture, firing at any creature that gets too close, but they soon run out of bullets. With hope fading, Sharon scribbles a note for Jonah, explaining their doctors searching for a cure for the zombie virus and revealing that Brown Eyes is immune, the key to their mission. Meanwhile, in the hidden room, Brown Eyes cowers, terrified by the chaos. Suddenly, a helicopter arrives. Within seconds, the soldiers aboard eliminate the zombies. Nathan remembers that the 18th was the scheduled day for a rescue party and rushes outside, yelling for help. However, the soldiers misinterpret him as a threat and shoot him dead. Jonah arrives just in time to witness Nathan's death, horrified. Spotting Sharon hiding nearby, he runs to her, and they attempt to flee. As they run, a zombie attacks Sharon, wounding her. Jonah kills the creature, but the gunshot draws the soldiers' attention. The couple quickly retreats to the pit, where they inject themselves with the cure to appear dead. Before passing out, they share a kiss, and Sharon hands Jonah the note. While they're unconscious, soldiers dump more bodies into the pit, including the child they saw earlier. Sometime later, Jonah wakes up to find Sharon lifeless beside him. Heartbroken, he steps on the letter Sharon left for him but doesn't notice it in his grief. Brown Eyes arrives, throwing him a rope to help him escape once again. Together, they cross the forest and stumble upon an even larger pit, this one filled with thousands of bodies, a grim reminder of the horrors they've been fighting. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications for more videos like this.